When soldier Ethan Cole returned from war, he found his home abandoned, his family gone, and his German shepherd, Kaiser, barely alive in the ruins of their backyard. The dog had waited for him, starved, broken, but still breathing. And as Ethan carried his dying best friend to the vet, he made a promise. If Kaiser fought to live, he'd fight just as hard to deserve him. The bus doors hissed open, releasing Ethan Cole into the brittle Texas air. It was colder than he remembered, or maybe he'd just forgotten what cold felt like after 13 months of desert heat. His duffel bag dug into his shoulder as he stepped onto the cracked pavement. The weight of it nothing compared to the invisible burden he carried. The town looked smaller. The diner where he'd had his first date still stood on the corner, but the neon open sign was dark. Mr. Henderson's hardware store had new bars on the windows. Even the oak tree near the bus stop, the one he'd carved his initials into at 16, seemed to have shrunk. His boots echoed hollowly as he walked. The house appeared suddenly around the bend, and Ethan froze. The porch light was off. That was wrong. His mother always left the light on. Always. Even when they went on vacation, that single bulb would burn like a beacon. "So you can always find your way home," she'd say. Now the house loomed dark and silent. Weeds choked the flower beds his mother had once tended with such care. The white picket fence, freshly painted the summer before he left, was now gray and splintered. One hinge hung loose, squealing like a wounded animal as he pushed through. "Mom." His voice sounded foreign to his own ears. "Dad?" Only the wind answered. The side door yielded too easily when he turned the knob. The familiar, sticky resistance was gone, as if the house had given up fighting. Inside, dust motes danced in the fading light. The living room smelled of mildew and abandonment. Ethan's pulse hammered in his throat as he stepped over the threshold. The couch still bore the imprint of his father's body. A coffee mug sat on the end table, the tea inside long evaporated to a brown stain. Photographs smiled from the walls, frozen moments of a life that no longer existed. He found the eviction notice taped to the refrigerator, dated 8 months ago. His knees hit the linoleum before he realized he was falling. The paper crumpled in his fist as a sound escaped him, something between a sob and a scream. They'd lost the house, they'd left, and no one had bothered to tell him. That's when he heard it. A whimper, so faint he thought he'd imagined it. Then it came again, a broken, breathy sound from the backyard. Ethan moved on autopilot, flashlight beam cutting through the gathering dark. The kennel was nearly collapsed, its roof sagging under years of neglect. And there, in the farthest corner, Kaiser. The name tore from his throat like a prayer. The creature that lifted its head barely resembled the proud German shepherd he'd left behind. Ribs protruded like a ship's hull beneath patchy fur. Clouded eyes struggled to focus, but the collar, rusted and filthy, still bore his name. Kaiser dragged himself forward an inch, then another. His nose touched Ethan's boot, and with his last strength, his tail thumped once against the dirt. Then he collapsed. Ethan's world narrowed to a single point. He gathered the trembling body into his arms, feeling every protruding bone, every labored breath. Kaiser smelled of infection and urine and hopelessness, but when Ethan buried his face in that matted fur, he caught the faintest trace of the puppy shampoo his mother used to buy. "I'm here," he whispered, tears falling freely. "I'm so sorry, boy. I'm here now." The 5 miles to the nearest vet clinic passed in a blur of whispered pleas and slowing breaths. Kaiser's heartbeat fluttered against Ethan's chest like a dying bird as he burst through the clinic doors, his voice raw with desperation. "Help him. Please just help him." The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting stark shadows on the vet's face as she delivered the verdict. Critical malnutrition, advanced dehydration, The right hind leg appears to have healed improperly from a fracture. She adjusted her glasses, voice softening. There's significant organ stress, Sergeant Cole. I won't lie to you. His chances aren't good. Ethan's hands clenched into fists. What does he need? IV fluids immediately. Blood work, possibly a transfusion. Then we'll need to address the leg. Whatever it takes. The vet hesitated. This level of care could run into thousands, and even then... Ethan was already pulling out his wallet, military ID flashing in the sterile light. Use this. Everything in that account. As the vet took the card, Ethan caught sight of his reflection in the observation window, hollow-eyed, unshaven, his ACU jacket as the dog lying on that steel table. The waiting room clock ticked louder with each passing minute. Ethan paced until his legs ached, then slumped into a plastic chair that smelled of antiseptic and fear. His mind replayed the moment he'd found Kaiser, the way those clouded eyes had recognized him instantly, despite everything, the single tail wag that had nearly destroyed him. When the vet finally emerged, her gloves were streaked with red. We've stabilized him. She wiped her brow. But the next 48 hours are critical. He's on heavy antibiotics for the infection in his leg, and we've started him on a refeeding protocol. Ethan exhaled for what felt like the first time in hours. Can I see him? The sight in the recovery room stole his breath. Kaiser lay motionless on a heated pad, an IV taped to his front leg, his ribs rising and falling in shallow bursts. The vet had shaved patches of his matted fur, revealing a roadmap of scars and pressure sores, but they'd also cleaned his face, and for the first time Ethan could see the ghost of his old friend beneath the damage. He reached out, then hesitated. It's okay, the vet said gently. He needs to know you're here. Ethan's fingers trembled as they brushed Kaiser's muzzle. The dog didn't stir, but his breathing seemed to deepen. I'm not leaving, Ethan promised, dragging a chair to the bedside. Not this time. The house smelled of lemon cleaner and fresh paint when Ethan finally brought Kaiser home. He'd spent every minute of those 3 hospital days scrubbing, repairing, erasing the neglect. The floors gleamed, new curtains fluttered at spotless windows, and in the living room, a nest of blankets and orthopedic pads, surrounded by every dog toy PetSmart had in stock. Kaiser whimpered as Ethan carried him inside, his body still wrapped in bandages. Easy, boy, Ethan murmured, lowering him gently onto the bedding. We're home. The first night was agony. Kaiser's fever spiked at 2 a.m., his whimpers escalating to panicked cries. Ethan bathed him with cool cloths, counting the seconds between each labored breath. When dawn finally broke, both of them were exhausted, but the fever had broken. Day 2 brought a different battle. Kaiser refused to eat. Come on, buddy, Ethan coaxed, holding out a piece of boiled chicken. Just a little bite. The dog turned his head away, his body trembling with the effort. Ethan's throat tightened. He remembered this from the war, how the will to live could flicker out like a candle in the wind. He slid to the floor back against the couch and pulled Kaiser into his lap. You don't have to do this for me, he whispered into the dog's ear. But do it for you. You deserve more than that, kennel. You deserve steaks and belly rubs and mornings sleeping in the sun. Kaiser's ears twitched. Ethan pressed his forehead against the dog's. Fight, Kaiser. Just fight a little longer. Slowly, so slowly, Kaiser turned and took the chicken from Ethan's fingers. The sob that escaped Ethan's chest sounded alien to his own ears. The first time Kaiser stood on his own, Ethan cried. The first time he took 3 wobbling steps, Ethan whooped so loud the neighbors called to check on them. And the first time Kaiser curled up beside him during a nightmare, licking the tears from his face, that was the moment Ethan realized they weren't just healing. They were being remade. Their days fell into a new rhythm. Mornings began with gentle stretches for Kaiser's bad leg, followed by small meals every few hours. Afternoons were for short walks, just to the mailbox at first, then gradually around the block. Evenings found them on the porch, Kaiser's head heavy on Ethan's knee as fireflies danced in the gathering dark. But progress wasn't linear. There were setbacks, days when Kaiser's leg swelled and he couldn't rise from his bed. Nights when Ethan woke screaming, drenched in sweat, only to find Kaiser already pressing against him, grounding him with warm fur and steady breath. One such night, after a particularly bad episode, Ethan found himself on the bathroom floor, Kaiser wedged firmly between him and the wall. "I'm broken, boy," he whispered, fingers buried in Kaiser's fur. Kaiser huffed, as if to say, "So am I." Then he licked Ethan's wrist, once, twice, before resting his chin on Ethan's knee with a contented sigh. In that moment, Ethan understood. They weren't broken. They were healing. Together. The park was alive with golden afternoon light, dappling through the oak leaves as Ethan walked slowly beside Kaiser. The German shepherd's gait was still uneven. His once shattered leg would never fully heal, but his head was high, his ears alert. They took this path every day now, part of their new routine. The doctors had said the exercise would help Kaiser's muscles. Ethan knew it helped his through the air as they neared the playground. A little girl in a bright yellow sundress was spinning in circles, arms outstretched, while her mother watched from a nearby bench. Kaiser's tail gave a slow, contented wag at the sound. Then, a shout. Ethan's head snapped up just in time to see a massive Rottweiler tear free from its owner's grip. The dog's lips were pulled back in a snarl, its focus locked onto the spinning girl. The mother screamed. The Rottweiler charged. Time seemed to slow. Ethan's combat instincts roared to life, but before he could move, Kaiser was already gone. The German shepherd launched forward with a speed Ethan hadn't seen since before the war. His bad leg barely seemed to touch the ground as he crossed the distance in seconds, placing himself squarely between the child and those snapping jaws. The collision was brutal. Kaiser took the full weight of the Rottweiler's lunge, letting out a pained yelp as teeth sank into his shoulder. But he didn't retreat. Digging his paws into the dirt, he pushed back, snarling, not to attack, but to hold the line. Ethan was moving before he could think, tackling the Rottweiler's owner as the man finally reached them. Together they pried the dogs apart. The little girl was sobbing in her mother's arms, unharmed. Then Ethan saw the blood. It poured from Kaiser's shoulder, matting his fur in crimson. His breathing came in ragged gasps, but when Ethan dropped to his knees, Kaiser still tried to lick his hand. "Stay with me, boy," Ethan choked out, pressing his jacket to the wound. Sirens wailed in the distance. "Just stay with me." The ride to the animal hospital was a blur. Kaiser's head grew heavier in Ethan's lap with every passing mile. The vet's face when they burst through the doors told him everything. This was bad. Really bad. As they wheeled Kaiser away, the nurse had to pry Ethan's blood-stained hands from the gurney. The waiting room clock ticked louder with each passing hour. Ethan sat slumped in a plastic chair, staring at his hands. The blood had dried brown under his fingernails. He kept seeing it. Kaiser's leap, the way he hadn't hesitated, the look in his eyes that said, "This is what I was meant to do." A soft cough made him look up. The little girl's mother stood there, her daughter clutching her leg. The child held out a crumpled drawing, a stick-figure dog with a lopsided yellow halo. "For the hero," she whispered. The surgical doors swung open before Ethan could respond. The vet's scrubs were stained, but she was smiling. "He's a fighter," she said. "Lost a lot of blood, but he'll pull through." Ethan's knees nearly gave out. When they finally let him see Kaiser, the dog was a mess of bandages and tubes, but his tail thumped weakly against the mattress. Ethan buried his face in the fur of Kaiser's neck, breathing in the familiar scent of home. "You crazy bastard," he murmured. "You glorious, stupid, perfect bastard." The story spread faster than wildfire. A shaky cell phone video of the attack went viral overnight. News vans camped outside Ethan's house. The American Hero Dog Award Committee called personally to nominate Kaiser. But the real surprise came on a rainy Tuesday morning. A knock at the door revealed a gray-haired man in an army uniform. "Sergeant Cole?" He extended an envelope. "The Veterans Therapy Program would be honored if you and Kaiser would consider working with us." Ethan stared at the paperwork, canine-assisted therapy for soldiers with PTSD. He looked down at Kaiser, who gazed back with those steady, knowing eyes. Tears blurred the words as he signed. Now, when they walk through the hospital corridors, it's not just as patient and pet, but as healers. The soldiers light up when Kaiser limps into the room. They talk more freely when he rests his head on their knees. And sometimes, in those quiet moments between sessions, Ethan catches them whispering the same promises he once made. "I'll come back for you." At night, they still sit on the porch as the fireflies blink to life. Kaiser's head grows heavier on Ethan's lap with each passing year, his muzzle more gray. But his tail still thumps when Ethan scratches that one spot behind his ears. And when the nightmares come, as they always do, Kaiser is there, a warm weight against his chest, a heartbeat steady as a drum. Proof that sometimes salvation comes on 4 paws.